Have you ever wondered what it's like to be trapped in your own mind, unable to move or communicate with the outside world? For some people, this nightmare becomes a reality when they fall into a coma. And what's even more terrifying is that sometimes they can hear everything that's going on around them. In this video, we'll be exploring some of the most chilling coma horror stories out there. What happens to our thoughts, dreams, and fears when we slip into a coma? Do we enter another dimension, or are we simply existing in a void of nothingness? It all started with a sharp pain in my chest. I remember gasping for air as I stumbled towards the door, trying to reach the phone to call for help. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the ground, my vision growing dimmer and dimmer until everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. The beeping of the machines and the smell of disinfectant made me feel disoriented and scared. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. Panic set in as I realized I was completely paralyzed. The doctors told me I had suffered a massive heart attack and were doing everything they could to save me. But as the days went by, I began to feel like I was trapped in a nightmare. I couldn't move or speak, and all I could do was lie there and watch as people came and went from my room. At first, I tried to stay positive. I told myself that I would recover and be able to walk and talk again. But as the weeks turned into months, my hope began to fade. I felt like I was living in a never-ending nightmare. And every time I closed my eyes, I hoped that I wouldn't wake up. But then something strange began to happen. I started to have vivid dreams and visions, almost like I was living a second life inside my head. At first, they were pleasant. I would imagine myself walking on the beach or having dinner with my family. But then they started to turn dark. In my dreams, I was trapped in a small room with no windows, and the walls were closing in on me. I could hear the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears as I struggled to breathe. Other times, I would dream of being chased by shadowy figures, their eyes glowing in the dark like demons from hell. The worst part was waking up from these dreams and realizing that they weren't just nightmares. They were memories. My mind had somehow stored all of the pain and fear from my time in the coma and was now replaying it over and over again. As the months turned into years, I began to feel like I was losing my mind. I was trapped in my own body, unable to move or speak, and the memories of my time in the coma were driving me to the brink of insanity. I begged the doctors to let me go, to let me slip away into the darkness once and for all. But they refused. They kept me alive, pumping me full of drugs and performing endless tests and procedures. And so I remained trapped in my own personal hell, waiting for the release of death. It's been 10 years since that fateful day, and I'm still here, still trapped in my own body. I don't know how much longer I can hold on, but I pray every day for the sweet release of death. Maybe then I can finally escape the nightmare that has consumed my life. I remember the day I fell into a coma. It was a normal day, like any other day. I was walking down the street, enjoying the sunshine and the sound of the birds chirping. Suddenly, I felt agonizing pain in my head, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed surrounded by machines and monitors. I tried to move my body, but I couldn't. I then began to panic when I realized that I was completely paralyzed. The doctors told me that I had suffered a severe brain injury and that they were doing everything they could to save me. But as the days went by, I began to feel like I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare. I couldn't move or speak, and all I could do was lie there and watch as people came and went from my room. At first, my family came to visit me every day. They would talk to me, hold my hand, and tell me that they loved me. But as the weeks turned into months, they stopped coming as often. I could hear their voices in the hallway, but they never came into my room. As time passed, I started to feel more and more alone. I would lie in my bed for hours staring at the ceiling, wishing that I could talk to someone, anyone. But there was no one there to hear me. The worst part was the feeling of helplessness. I could hear the doctors and nurses talking about me, but I couldn't tell them what I was feeling or what I needed. I was completely at their mercy, and it was a terrifying thought. As the weeks turned into months, I started to feel like I was fading away. I would close my eyes and drift off into a dreamlike state where I could see and hear everything around me, but I couldn't interact with it. In my dreams, I would see my family and friends laughing and having fun without me. They had moved on with their lives, and I was stuck in this never-ending nightmare. The worst part was waking up from these dreams and realizing that they weren't just dreams. They were memories. My mind had somehow stored all of the sadness and loneliness from my time in the coma and was now replaying it over and over again. As the years went by, I began to lose hope. I knew that I would never be able to walk or talk again, and the thought of spending the rest of my life in this state was unbearable. I prayed every day for a way out, for some kind of miracle to happen. But it never did. I remained trapped in my own body, alone and helpless for the rest of my life. And even though I couldn't express it, the sadness and pain I felt in my heart were more real than anything else. I never thought I would end up like this, lying in a hospital bed, trapped inside my own body. For months I was in a coma, and during that time I experienced things I never imagined possible. It was a heartbreaking experience that changed my life forever. I remember the day it happened so vividly. I was driving home after a long day at work, lost in thought, when a car ran a red light and slammed into my vehicle. The impact was so severe that I was knocked unconscious on impact. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and buzzed around me. My family was there, looking down at me with tears in their eyes. They told me I'd been in a coma for months, and that the doctors had done everything they could to save my life. But as they spoke, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping over me. I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't move my arms. I was paralyzed from the neck down. As the days turned into weeks, I struggled to come to terms with my new reality. I was trapped inside my own body, unable to do the things I loved. I couldn't go for a run, dance, or even hold a pen to write. At first, I tried to remain positive. I was determined to beat this injury, to prove to myself and everyone else that I could overcome any obstacle. But as time passed, that determination turned to despair. I was consumed by anger, frustration, and sadness. I felt like my life was over before it had even begun. But then, something miraculous happened. I began to dream. In my dreams, I was free from my injury. I could run, jump, and dance again. I felt alive in a way that I hadn't since the accident. And as I dreamed, I began to feel a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could make those dreams a reality. Maybe there was a chance that I could regain some of the strength and mobility I had lost. So I threw myself into physical therapy, pushing myself harder than I ever had before. I worked tirelessly to regain control of my body, and slowly but surely, I began to see progress. I could move my fingers, then my hands, and eventually, my arms. But no matter how hard I worked, I knew that I would never fully recover. I would never be able to run, dance, or even walk again. And that was a heartbreaking realization. But even though my injury had taken so much away from me, it had also given me something in return. It had given me a new perspective on life. I realized that every moment was precious, and that I needed to make the most of the time I had. So I started to focus on the things that brought me joy, spending time with my family and friends, reading, writing, and pursuing new hobbies. I learned to appreciate the small things in life, like the warmth of the sun on my face, the sound of the rain, and the taste of a delicious meal. And even though I still had moments of sadness and despair, I knew that I was stronger than my injury. I had faced my darkest fears and emerged on the other side with a newfound appreciation for life. In the end, I realized that my injury had not defined me. It had tested me, challenged me, and most importantly, changed me. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of my content, please make sure to hit the like button. Which crazy horror stories would you like for us to uncover next? Leave a comment below to tell us how you felt about the video. And if this is your first time here and you like eerie horror stories, make sure not to forget to subscribe to my channel so you'll never miss out on any of my future uploads. Thank you so much for watching.